My name is Dr. David Weindorf, and I serve as both Associate Dean for Research for the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources, as well as the B.L. Allen Endowed Chair of Pedology in the Department of Plant and Soil Science, serving as a soil scientist. And I've had the opportunity over the years to conduct research all around the world, and I've taken students with me to many different countries around the world, conducting research and actually teaching abroad as well. Back in 2011, I had the good fortune to be selected as a Fulbright Scholar, and actually taught a course at a university in Romania, in Cluj-Napoca. And while over there, also conducted extensive research projects which in fact continue today as well. Study abroad is a really important experience for students to have, especially in the context of living in a global society. It used to be years ago where the university was filled with students that we have just from around the southern high plains, but anymore you look at our hallways and we have students from all over the world, from the far reaches of the globe. And in the Department of Plant and Soil Science, I'll just use as an example, I currently have a graduate student from Nepal. I have a visiting postdoc from China. This last year I hosted another visiting postdoc from Egypt. And we have students from India and Syria and just all over the world. So each of those students brings a unique perspective on the world. And some of the things that we kind of take for granted, they don't take for granted. And they can bring those experiences to our students and have those discussions. And it's not always a formal discussion. Sometimes it's going to lunch, sometimes it's going to have a recreational activity or going to a ball game or something like that. And they really find a lot of commonalities between cultures and can share a lot of things that transcend just the research and the teaching that goes on at the university. I would say that, in the College of Agricultural Sciences and Natural Resources, we have a lot of programs, both as in conducting research as well as doing teaching study abroad activities all around the world. We realize that we can't be all things to all people, and so we have to target our activities to specific regions or areas of the world where we have expertise. Many times we look for natural linkages as it relates to ecosystem dynamics. So in the southern high plains of Texas, we're in a fairly dry, arid region. Moisture is limiting here. Irrigation is problematic. Sometimes we have brackish water that we have to use. Well, there are other places in the world that align very nicely with those same types of problems. Places like Australia or India, places in Africa as well, sub-Saharan Africa. So we're looking at those kinds of places and we're trying to identify areas where we would have expertise that we could bring to the table and hopefully enable us to collaborate. What I would say is in talking to employers today, we hear two things that they're really looking for. They're looking for students who can solve problems in the workforce, and in addition to that, they want students with a global perspective. And in our study abroad programs, we're finding that students really get that global perspective firsthand. Either they are interacting with international students and faculty members who are on exchange here at Texas Tech, or they themselves are traveling as part of a course or an independent study program as they go to different countries around the world. We had originally planned to have a trip that was going to go to China, but we had just gone to China the year before, and so this year we didn't get adequate enrollment for that. So I will tell you that in the past we have taken students to Scotland, we've taken students to Ethiopia, we've had students work extensively in Central America and Honduras and in and around the Caribbean. This summer I can tell you on a personal basis I'm taking an undergraduate student with me to Romania, and we will be conducting a study on the spatial variability of heavy metals in a small village known as Baia Mare, Romania. And we'll look to publish those results in a peer-reviewed research journal. We see a lot of students that are interested in those programs, and cost is certainly a concern, but there are scholarships that can help to defray some of those costs. And normally the way that it works is if you have a larger group of people that are going, we're able to get the individual cost for each student down somewhat, which is nice. But in addition to that, they're really just seeking out that extra experience that they wouldn't get just staying in Texas or staying in the United States. So being able to go to a different country and experience a different culture, the logistical challenges of working in a different country, I run out of batteries, or my, piece of equipment that I have broke down. How am I going to fix that overseas, especially when I don't speak the language? Those are the kinds of challenges that really give our students the tools they need to compete in global society. We're going to see study abroad activities and our international engagement activities increasing over time. The reason I say this comes from President Nellis, who's president of Texas Tech University, all the way down through the administration, that they are very supportive of international engagement. We have the International Cultural Center here at Texas Tech, which has a very talented staff in direction by Dr. Tibor Nagy, who's a former U.S. ambassador to Ethiopia. So we have some really good people in place that can help to facilitate those types of exchanges and give our students that experience. Our QEP, Bear Our Banners Far and Wide, Communicating in a Global Society, really integrates that global theme. And it takes kids from West Texas who may have never left Lubbock County, who may have never left the South Plains, and it exposes them to something totally different. It's one thing to be exposed to something like Hispanic culture, which we have very commonly here in the High Plains, given our proximity to Mexico. But take those students farther down into Central America, into Costa Rica, into Panama, these types of areas, even into Southern America, and they really get to see a totally different part of the world. They understand politics, religion, the logistics of working in different places in a whole different manner. And what we often find is students will come back and they'll say, you know, I saw a story on World News Tonight, and until I took this class or until I engaged with my international partners at the university, it was just a story on TV. But now that I've been there and I've seen those places, it really comes to life for me. And that's really what we're trying to do in an educational context. What I would say is there are certain parts of the world that are more logistically challenging than others. I mean, you could have a study abroad experience to Canada, but you'd get by just fine in Canada speaking English in most places, right? But if you get dropped off in the middle of the outback in Australia, just the sheer size of that country and the lack of infrastructure in the outback makes traveling around a real logistical challenge. Drop you off in the middle of a country where the characters are not even English characters. You know, you're in China, for instance, and you're using symbols instead of letters for communicating. That really starts to push people out of their comfort zone and stretch that comfort zone. And then they see that M for McDonald's and they feel a little bit better knowing that there's a little taste of home. But we want to do all of these exchanges with our students in a very safe context. We would never want to subject them to any type of dangerous situation. And we very carefully monitor those situations around the world. And we certainly will stay away from any countries if there might be any sort of danger or situation like that. This article that was published just last year in the scientific journal PLOS ONE, and the author Smith et al. In 2014 developed this paper titled The Scientific Impact of Nations, Journal Placement and Citation Performance. And essentially what they found, they did this multi-year study and they looked at thousands of different papers that have been published in scientific journals. And what they found are the papers that have authors from multiple countries tend to be more cited, and they tend to be a higher impact factor. They tend to reach more people than those papers that are published where all the authors are only from one country. So this gives us an idea that in higher education, whether we're doing research or whether we're teaching, we're in the business of exchanging ideas. We're here to train people. We're here to train the next generation. We have to convey our knowledge to the next generation, but we're also in the business of learning, making discoveries, trying new things. And working with people from different parts of the world gives us that important perspective to think outside the box a little bit, to try things in a different way that we might not even envision here in the United States. But what I would tell the students watching this is if you have any interest in getting involved in any sort of international activity, please let the faculty members at the university know that early on in your academic program. Speaking only for myself, I can tell you in the next coming months, 2 weeks from now I'll be in India conducting a research project with the university there. At the end of May I'll be in South Africa working with faculty members there on a research project. Then I'm taking a student with me to Romania and Spain this summer for 3 research projects there. And I'm going to end up the summer by spending 3 weeks in Alaska doing a documentary film on Arctic soils. So these are the types of opportunities that you find at a university that is committed to excellence and international engagement, and we look forward to working with you in that capacity.